I think we've all had that time when you're doing your chores, you're doing your homework, or you're in the gym, and you just get a random thought, an idea of something you need to do. Ooh, I should order this thing. Ooh, I just remembered I should write this down or something. And then you forget. Now, before you start hating yourself, thinking you have dementia, just remember that the human brain is made to create ideas and not store them, which is why it is completely normal for you to just get a random thought, no matter how important it is, and just forget it like 30 seconds later, because that is exactly how working memory is supposed to work. Let me just quickly introduce myself. I'm Andrew, I'm 16 years old, and I help young men unlock their potential by becoming better at their everyday tasks and become more masculine through self-improvement. I also share with you my best adventures and experiences, like going on dates, marathons, and other crazy shit. If anything about what I just said interests you and you want more videos like this on your homepage, then you can scroll down and subscribe. Let me just quickly go over the 3 types of memories we have in our brains so you get a clear idea. Of course, we have short-term memory and long-term memory. Short-term memory is basically everything that you learn in school. I mean, honestly, I don't remember most of the shit I learned in school, and that's because when you memorize something for a test, you go over it multiple times, it gets into your brain, but then your brain forgets it a couple of days or a couple of weeks later. And this is for a very simple reason. Your brain's capacity is actually finite, which means it is unable to store every single thing that it learns and experiences throughout your life. That would just be too much. And so imagine in your smartphone, there's a setting to delete old and irrelevant files, but especially irrelevant files, because old files, I mean, I've got childhood memories, you do too, but those memories are actually meaningful. But your brain actually knows what's important for you and your personality and what isn't. And so let's say I hate math. I study for the test, I actually get it done, and I get an A+. But then 3 weeks later, they ask me how I did it, and it's like, I don't even remember the equation. It's like I don't remember anything because my brain basically knows I hate math, and thus it just deleted everything I didn't care about to free up space in my brain. And let me just emphasize again that this is a good thing. I mean, your brain would literally overload. It would explode if it would remember every single thing. But you've probably heard of these weird people who remember very specific things, like they remember everything, the exact date and time and what happened, and it's so weird. It's like, how the hell do they remember that? And it's actually this syndrome called hyperthalassemia, and basically what this does to them is that the part of their brain which makes this chemical hormone which physically disrupts the links between the neurons, you know, like the neurological brain cells, it actually doesn't work right and doesn't produce enough of those chemicals, which means that their brain is overloaded with all these connections. And it might sound cool to remember every single date and everything that happened to you ever, but it's actually not as cool as it seems. But they do remember everything. Anyway, let's move on to long-term memory. Now, I don't think long-term memory needs a lot of explanation. Basically, it's memories where the brain cells, the neurons, have such a strong connection that it's basically unbreakable. Like the more times you use something, like let's say you practice boxing for 10,000 hours or you practice video editing for 10,000 hours, I mean, you're gonna know everything. It's not like you're gonna forget how to cut a video in half, because your brain accessed that piece of information so many times to utilize it in your life that every time it accesses it, it reinforces the connection between those neurons, and it basically makes the memory indestructible. And that is literally why practice makes perfect. I mean, you can imagine back in the day, the biggest samurai masters with their katanas, and they would practice day and night for years and years. I mean, they perfected every move. I mean, their movement, their ability, their reaction time, everything that they use is so perfect. I mean, the signals to perfectly move your arm with the sword come from the brain, and if those brain cells creating those signals are so powerful, like the connection between sword movement neurons is so strong that the connection is basically perfect and everything they do is literally perfect. That's long-term memory, and you can actually reinforce long-term memory and create better long-term memory by just practicing more. And of course, when a crazy thing happens to you or you make $1 million in one day, I mean, obviously obviously you're gonna remember that. I think that's pretty obvious why you would remember these things. But now we've arrived to the most interesting part, working memory. This is what the video and the tip that I'm about to show you is all about. And this is probably also the most interesting memory type in your brain. So you can basically imagine working memory as RAM in a computer. You know, random access memory. You don't have a lot of it, but what you do have is fast and it's valuable. Your phone or your computer will always allocate that memory to the task at hand. So it's not good at storing things long term, and its capacity is extremely finite. So what is it good at? Working. Let's go back to math again, and imagine you're writing your math homework. It's like a complex multi-stage exercise that you need to do. So let's say you're side calculating something. It's like a small number, it's not the main calculation. You get the result and you just kind of store it in your head for a few seconds until you write it down again on the main calculation. Now that is working memory, because you will never remember what that number was. You will only remember it for those few seconds that you need it for the main thing. You will only remember it for those few moments that you're actually utilizing it. Again, that's why when you go and meet someone new and you're totally focused, that's like, oh shit, what am I gonna say and everything, and you go up to them to introduce yourself and they tell you their name, and like 2 minutes later you literally don't even remember their name because you just weren't focused. Like, you heard their name, it's like, oh yes, hey Michael, but then a few minutes later it's like, I don't even remember. Now you can actually test how good your working memory is. And if you want to do that, I'm not going to waste your time with that right now, but if you really want to do that, you can just search up on YouTube. There's lots of like 1-minute videos on like, oh, working memory test, and they're going to tell you like a string of numbers, like 5, 6, or 7 numbers, and then they're going to tell you something else, and then they're going to ask you to recite those numbers, and based on how many you remember and how correctly you recite those numbers, they will give you a score on how good your working memory is. Now, there are things that improve your working memory, like higher dopamine levels, and I actually take 1,000 milligrams of L-tyrosine every day to increase my dopamine levels, because basically L-tyrosine is the precursor to dopamine, and that is exactly why tyrosine is advertised as this thing that's gonna give you better focus, and you're gonna be more focused in the gym and in your workouts and while studying and everything. It's exactly because it indirectly boosts your working memory capacity and strength and speed and everything. But still, going back to the first example of this video in the beginning of you getting a random thought and being like, oh yes, I'm gonna do that, and then you just forget to do that, I will tell you how I fixed that problem forever. And by doing this, you will literally become such an intellectual and clever person. You're actually gonna be able to take action on every thought. I mean, just imagine how valuable that is. I mean, imagine if that $1 million idea that you got a few months ago while you were walking your dog would have still been here and you could have taken action on it, because right now you don't remember it because you already forgot it. Your working memory is already deleted it. Imagine just writing down that idea a few months ago. Your whole life's trajectory would literally change, and that is exactly what we're gonna do. Now, you can either carry a little pen and a notebook with yourself all time, which you're probably not gonna do, so just grab your phone, go into reminders, or go into your notes app and just open a new note and just write down the idea, and then maybe if your phone supports it, also put a widget on your home screen so it's always in front of you. You can literally just open your phone, click plus, and just add the idea, and it's done. It's literally 5 seconds, and it is the most valuable thing you could ever do, because we get so many amazing ideas every day. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I've been doing this for about 1.5 months, and it's making a huge difference, like you wouldn't even imagine. Again, this is the exact protocol I use. You grab your phone, you go into the notes app, you write down your idea on like one big note, you just write them down under each other, and then at the end of every single week, I just sit down. I have like 40 minutes of my daily calendar put into me reviewing these ideas and taking action on them, because that's the second step. You don't just write them down. You write them down, you collect a few of them, and at the end of the week, you sit down and you maybe clear out a few which are totally irrelevant. You realize that like, that's just bullshit, why did I write that down? But then there's actually gonna be a lot of ideas that are like, okay, okay, so I wrote down order new Adidas Ultra Boost sneakers because the old one got muddy. I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna click order and it's done. There's gonna be like video idea, 7 ways to boost your metabolic health, and it's like, ooh, I've got some ideas on that, so I'll make a video on that. I'll put them into my video drafts or something. Just take action on them. And this simple 2-step process that you will make a habit out of will literally just make you so much more intellectual, so much smarter. And I just can't wait for you to try this out and realize how big of an impact it makes. If you watched till the end, congratulations, you're part of the top 5% of people who have a decent attention span. If you want more content like this to pop up in your homepage, then just click on the subscribe button right now. With that said, thank you so much for watching. Bye.